What were your favorite and least favorite parts of your awakening? So I had an awakening process that lasted around 6 years, maybe 6 to 7 years. And during that awakening process, the highs, my most favorite parts of my own awakening were the times where I really felt super, super connected. When you're first going through an awakening, especially initially for a lot of us, when we have that moment of awakening, a lot of times what happens is we just start to see the world almost like we're seeing the world for the first time. And we experience this sense of connection, of just being connected to everything from people to animals to plants to the entire universe, and really understanding and feeling that everything is connected. Exactly what all spiritual teachers say, that we're all connected, that everything's connected. And when you're having a spiritual awakening, especially initially, when that door opens up to spirituality, it's almost like you're inundated with this feeling of connection. You could really feel it. The veil drops and you can really feel this sense of connection. And that was so blissful to me. I had a lot of times of ecstasy, of bliss, of just being, giggling, and just so much joy in being in nature and just being in this universe and being on this planet. So there was a lot of that. There was a lot of connection, a lot of times of just utter bliss. There was also a lot of times of just seeing the sacredness in everything. That happened to me a lot. Just seeing the sacredness, even in the most mundane things, I would see sacredness. I would see connection. I would see love. So it's like the most mundane things in my life, they took on a different form, and they started to appear all sacred to me. There was nothing that was small. There was nothing that was pointless. Everything had its place and everything was sacred to me. So I really, really loved those parts of my awakening, especially that sense of connection. I would also say that that I felt very connected to my spirit guides. So there was multiple times in my awakening where my guidance was coming through very, very clearly. I could hear my guides. I understood what they were saying. I was downloading all of these messages from them, and that really helped me feel less alone. I went through a particularly solitary spiritual awakening. I was alone. I was in solitude, almost in hermit mode for 4 years of that spiritual awakening. And so being connected to my guides really, really helped me. I was listening to their messages. I could hear them, and so I felt more connected to them. So that's my favorite parts. My least favorite parts of my awakening, I would have to say, it was probably, the dark night of the soul. That's one of the stages that's hardest for the majority of people. I like to call it the dark night of the ego, because literally what happens in the dark night is you go from the highs. You can't be in bliss and in ecstasy and in joy all the time, right? We're humans, and we're here to experience humanness. And so inevitably, when you go up to the highs, you're going to have to come down. And especially if you have a lot to heal, which was my case. So if you have a lot of childhood trauma, if you have a lot of stuff that you need to heal, inevitably that ecstasy, you come down, and you have to come down into the pits of your own being to heal the stuff that needs to be healed. And for me, that dark night was particularly difficult because I had a lot of trauma to heal. And so at times it felt like I was just lost in this dark abyss and that I was never going to get out of there. And I connect with a lot of people around the world who say the same thing, that when they're in the dark night, they literally feel like they're not going to be able to get out of there. So that was particularly hard for me, it felt like I would heal one thing and then another thing would come up, and then I'd heal and then another thing would come up. And it just felt like I was swimming in a cesspool and I was never going to get out of there. So that was one phase that was really hard. Another one was when I had a Kundalini awakening. I had what's known as a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. And my Kundalini awakening, for some people, it's really ecstatic and very blissful. For me, it was very difficult, because as soon as the Kundalini energy started to rise and started to blast through my chakras, and it started to kind of cleanse me and purify me, I had a ton of physical symptoms that were really hard to deal with. So I had extreme exhaustion. Some days I couldn't even walk up a flight of stairs. I thought I was severely sick actually for a while. And then I understood that this was a process that the Kundalini was doing in my body, and my body was just overly exhausted. But I went through a lot of physical symptoms, extreme heat. Like there was some times where I would wake up in the middle of the night and I was burning. I felt like I had a fire inside of me. And I'd have to go stand in front of my refrigerator. I'd open the refrigerator door and I'd stand there at like 3 o'clock in the morning. That's how I felt like I was burning. So during my Kundalini awakening, and not just during my Kundalini awakening, but through my awakening process, I had a lot of physical symptoms. And a lot of people reach out to me and they say too that they're going through physical symptoms. I know what that feels like. So I went through a lot of aches and pains, a lot of physical symptoms and physical issues that I had throughout my awakening. So that's another kind of low. Another low that I would mention that was particularly affected me was when I went down into the healing, I also stopped being able to kind of connect to my spirit guides. I lost that connection. When you go into this dark night, when you go into the pits of your own healing, sometimes you lose connection to your spirit guides, and it's not because they don't love you. It's not because they're not there. It's because you're in this level of energy and you're going into your own basement that sometimes you'll lose that connection, that crystal clear connection that you have with your guides. Sometimes you'll lose it and it feels like you're completely alone and nobody's with you. So that was hard for me until I understood that there was a process to it and there was a reason that was happening and that my guides were with me even if I couldn't hear them or perceive them. And once I understood that, then it made things a lot easier. But there was a while there where I felt really lonely. I felt like I had been abandoned because I couldn't connect with my spirit guides. I couldn't hear the messages from the universe. So I would say that was another hard issue that I had during my spiritual awakening. So there you go. There are a lot of highs and a lot of lows during an awakening, but at the end of the day, they all have their purpose. And if you're going through a low right now, just everything's going to get better. You're going to come out of that energy. And if you're in a high, enjoy it, enjoy it while it lasts, but kind of try not to hold on or have any form of attachment to the highs or the lows. Don't attach to anything. Just remember that you're a human being and you're going to go through different phases on this planet, ups and downs, and it's all a part of being human, and it's all blessed during your spiritual awakening.